Hi, it's Matt with State of Flex here for the 52-week Everyone's a Critic 52-week movie challenge. We are on week 13, coming at you a little bit late. The challenge this week was a film based on a television series or turned into a television series. The movie I chose was Power Rangers. Year release 2017, aspect ratio 2351, runtime 2 hours and 4 minutes. Genre, action sci-fi, but I would say this is more of a coming-of-age film. Rated PG-13, starring Darcy Montgomery, Naomi Scott, R.J. Seiler. We're going to go with Seiler, it could be Kyler. Ludi Lin and Becky G. Directed by Dean Israelite. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly as well. Produced by Saban by way of Lionsgate. Written by John Gatness, with a story by Matt Sazama. I know personally a Matt Sazama, who's one of my nearest and dearest humans. This is written by Matt Sazama. Burke Shilas, Michelle Mulrooney, and Kieran Mulrooney. Music by Brian Tyler. I'm just going to stop briefly and say something about Brian Tyler. The music in this I don't have much to say about, which is why I'm going to mention it here. Brian Tyler has a very synth, electronic kind of score. It sounds very Thor Ragnarok. If you like that score, you'll probably dig the score to this film. But Brian Tyler is a very underrated composer. He's done a lot of some of the Marvel movies. Not necessarily the greatest scores. Iron Man 3 was a pretty solid one, but he wrote one of my all-time favorite scores for any movie ever, which is Bubba Ho-Tep. Movie not a lot of people have watched. Check it out. Excellent movie, amazing score. Continuing on, awards. This movie was nominated for 16 Choice Awards, most of which went for its performances. I think all of which went for its performances. Let's see, Darcy Montgomery, Naomi Scott, Becky G all got nominations for performance, as well as R.J. Kyler for Scene Stealer and Elizabeth Banks for Best Villain, I think it was. I guess it's time to do my review for Power Rangers. And there's no real way to do a Power Ranger review without starting it with "It's Morphin time!" Mastodon. Don't know why I said that. Why did you choose this particular film? Originally I was going to choose a Star Trek film because I deeply, deeply love Star Trek, and then I thought a movie that inspired a TV show, what better one to do than Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my all-time favorite TV show. Talking about that show and its creators, kind of like treading through difficult waters right at this time, some that I'm not even comfortable with or even know how I feel about myself. I'm still kind of nursing those wounds. So why did I choose Power Rangers? One of my very first loves ever was Power Rangers. That was a fandom that I adhered myself to so hardcore that I even joined the Power Ranger fan club back in 1995 when it first came out. I was deeply in love with this show. In fact, the very first episode of this show that I ever watched, I have right here on DVD. I'm going to acknowledge point blank, the show is really not very good. I still enjoy it for nostalgic purposes, so much so that I have this DVD 5-part Green with Evil story. It's feature length, basically, the story of how the Green Ranger got entangled into the whole Power Rangery goodness. Yeah, so my love for Power Rangers runs deep. However, I've rewatched a lot of it with my daughter, and it's basically reset television. You watch one episode, you've watched every single episode. It's Matlock. But the acting isn't quite as impressive as Matlock. That said, I was very, very excited for when this movie was coming out because I was like, oh, they're going to do a really interesting grounded take on Power Rangers. And then I saw the first trailer and I was like, whoa, this looks like hyper serious. I thought they were going to go Marvel with it and make it a little funny. And there is a fair amount of humor in this. There's the movie opens with an incredibly well-placed bestiality joke, which I'm all for. But I was a big fan of it. So and when I watched it when it first came out, it impressed me. The reviews were pretty not spectacular. That's being pretty generous. I think it has like 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I remember watching this movie when it first came out, and I thought it was good. I even showed it to a friend, and she thought it was good. But it's been about 5 years, so I was like, let's revisit this film. So coming back to it 5 years later, I guess next question is, have I seen this movie before? Yes I have. Pterodactyl. I don't know why I just said that. What I meant to say was, would you recommend this film? Why or why not? Coming back to this movie 5 years later, absolutely. I think it's really good. Why did this movie get bad reviews? I'm not really sure. Is this movie just a carbon copy of Breakfast Club? Yes it is. But I happen to really like Breakfast Club, and this movie kind of takes away a lot of the more problematic elements, or the elements that didn't age well with Breakfast Club, and replaces them with giant, like, kaijus and robots. Which, if you were to ask me what one thing would benefit the Breakfast Club, it would be, does this movie have robots, and could it use them? And the answer is always inevitably going to be yes. Giant robots fix a lot of movies. Casablanca could use a giant robot. Citizen Kane's already got a pterodactyl. Just need to throw in, giant robot. It's already almost a Power Rangers movie. But to be serious, I really enjoyed Power Rangers. It's a fun movie. It's light, it takes itself seriously, and the characters are well written. So much so that you like every single one of them. I guess Zach would be the weakest of the characters, but even he is pretty well established. He's just the one that kind of gets the least amount of screen time, or meaningful screen time, I should say. But he has one of the more emotional storylines, in that he's trying to care for his sick grandmother, or mother it might be. But this movie is good. It's fun when it needs to be, and it's 2 hours long. The Rangers don't get their costume until the last half hour of the movie. This is really a character piece of getting to know who these characters are, bringing them together as a team, and I really enjoyed that. The dramatic elements of the movie really kind of hold weight and heft, but it allows itself to have fun. This is all the best elements of the film Chronicle, without any of the toxicity that comes with watching Chronicle or the whole Max Landis of it all. And I can't give that higher praise, because Chronicle had a lot of great ideas, just with a singular voice that was kind of very apparent even watching that then, was a problematic voice. This movie kind of saps a lot of that out. And I enjoyed it. The humor in it, as I say, works. But it's these characters, these 5 individuals, that really, really sell it. Darcy Montgomery as Jason has a strong, commanding presence. You buy him as team leader, but he has like a insecurity that sort of is just under the surface and always threatening to bubble over. He performs the role really, really well. Naomi Scott is the standout. She is fantastic, and it's not a surprise to me that of all these 5 actors that lead this film, she's the one that has gone on to do the most things, having gone on to be Princess Jasmine in the Aladdin remake, of which she was the standing figure in that film that outshone everybody else. And she was in Charlie's Angels, and I would imagine she's going to have a pretty long and hefty career, because she's got the chops, man. She is good. R.J. Seiler, they take a lot of liberties with the Billy character, and this kid makes them work when on paper they could come off as potentially annoying or even potentially offensive. This character is very strongly identified as having like Asperger's or being at the very least on the spectrum, and this kid sells it. He's so good. He's very likable, and his Teen Choice Award nomination for Scene Stealer is pretty well earned. Ludi Lin is Zach. I said that he has sort of the least to do with the film, least meaningful stuff to do in the film. But he's good. He brings a lot of energy. Some of these other characters are a little more pulled back or reserved. He's the one that's a little vibrant and like wild, and he's pretty solid in it. He's not as good as this is the same actor who was in the new Mortal Kombat movie playing Liu Kang. He's watching those two performances. He's really doing a lot in this, like being full of energy, because he was so like stoic and reserved as and kind-natured as Liu Kang that it kind of surprised me to find out it was the same actor. And then Becky G rounds out the cast playing Trini, and she's really good. And I like that they take a LGBTQA route with her character. But I always felt that the second leader of the Power Rangers, excluding like Tommy or whatever, was always the Yellow Ranger. The Trini character always struck me as team leader when Jason wasn't around. And you get the sense that Becky G could rise up into that status were this franchise to continue. And I liked her character. You can tell that like acting maybe isn't her forte, but she doesn't give a bad performance. She just gives not a terribly confident one, but that also kind of works for her character. And then rounding out the cast, we have Bill Hader as Alpha 5, and he's far less annoying than the character on the TV show. Elizabeth Banks is Rita Repulsa, and she seems to really know what movie she's in, and she just goes for it, as she often does. She's a great actress. But it is Bryan Cranston who is Zordon, and he's fantastic in this movie. He's so good. And I like what they did of tying Rita and Zordon into the lore of the Power Rangers. The movie opens up in the very opening scene before the amazing bestiality joke with the decimation of the Power Rangers as they were. Zordon watches as his Ranger buddies are killed at the hands of the Green Ranger being Rita Repulsa. And he is able to excise all of the coins, including his own. He was the original Red Ranger, according to this, and he is able to send these 5 coins into Earth, where they will rest until they are called again, and they're finally called by these 5 individuals who go to this school but don't really know each other very well. I like how this ties that in, and also there's a lot of Easter eggs for hardcore fans of the Power Ranger lore, but it takes them seriously. It's not laughable or tongue-in-cheek either, yet there is some like tongue-in-cheeky moments here and there, but by and large this works really well. It's pretty grounded, and these characters, as I say, I keep hitting on it, these characters are really likable and you want to spend more time with them. It's kind of a shame that we're unlikely to. But let's keep moving on. So, next question. Triceratops. Well, that's weird. That's not the question at all. Which character were you most able to identify with or connect with, and in what way? As I said before, and I keep hitting this, I like all these characters. They're all relatable in some way. They are all insanely likable, but they all have flaws, pretty significant ones, that they're either trying to atone for or prove themselves the antithesis of said flaw. So I really liked that aspect of the film. I have always been like Jason the Red Ranger was always my favorite character back in the day, so I gravitated towards him. And like I said before, I really like how Darcy Montgomery plays that character, a person who feels the weight of the world on his shoulders, extreme pressure, and has just a note of insecurity about being able to deliver, which is always threatening to bubble over. I've definitely felt that. I have not lived the former star quarterback lifestyle that he does in this film, but I do feel like in order to be the leader and have the strength to lead, you also have to be guided by your insecurity of not being able to pull the team together, which feels very relatable to me. So I guess I would go with Jason on this one. Best line or memorable quote. It was in like all the trailers, but the moment that that Zordon relents power and he says, "You are the Power Rangers." Like the way he just delivers that whole like little speech, finally having given up the power that he is trying to repossess, and giving it to these 5 individuals, is almost kind of moving for me. Like, it didn't bring me to tears, but you feel the goosebumps in that moment, or at least I did, especially as a long-term fan. And Bryan Cranston just really hits it 100% on this. He committed to this performance, and he's really good in the movie. The movie as a whole is a lot better than its ranking on Rotten Tomatoes. I urge you to actually just watch this movie, but like, moving on, whatever. Saber-toothed tiger. That's not what I meant to say. What was it? Oh, were you surprised by the ending? And what would you do differently? I liked... So the end... No, I wasn't surprised by the ending. It's after all the Power Rangers movie. And I did like that the first 90 minutes of this movie are spent bringing these characters together, fleshing them out as real human people, so that the last 22 minutes could be a basic episode of Power Rangers where the final conflict happens because the Rangers suit up, fight the putties, best the putties. Rita gets mad, makes her monster grow, and then they see this giant monster attacking town, so then they call upon their Zords. You have the "Go Go Power Rangers" song, the whole song. It's not the whole song, you get like 30 seconds of it. As the Zords come together, the Zords start saving the townsfolk and fighting back, but Goldar's too big for him, so the Zords connect to create Megazord. Megazord attacks the Goldar. All of that is really good. Comes to this blissful climax where Rita is expulsed from Goldar, having like possessed him or whatever, and the way that the thing gets taken care of is Megazord just slaps her and she goes blasting off into space. That amused the hell out of me. It was also kind of funny because I watched this the day after the Oscars, so I was like, wow, there's a lot of slaps in my life right now. But was I surprised by this? No, I wasn't. Would I have changed anything? No, I wouldn't. I enjoyed that this movie was a 90-minute slow burn setup of character study so that you could get your standard 22 minutes of Power Rangers. It was glorious, and I was there for every second of it. It was fantastic. Now, I know a lot of people's criticism of this movie is that it takes 90 minutes before these superheroes suit up. And that's fair, but it's not like you weren't sitting there not caring about who these people were. I took my dad to see this movie in the theater, and he was like, oh God, But I was like, no, let's watch it. It might be good. And he came out of the movie liking it. He was like, you know what? The characters actually kind of pulled me in, and he was fine with it. And he too was amused when it was like just this long setup for just your regular episode of Power Rangers to show up right at the very end. Just done with a budget this time. So, I wouldn't change anything for the world. No. Um, Tyrannosaurus. It's not what I meant to say. It is, if you have seen the television series, do you prefer the movie or the TV version? Why? The movie. The movie had actors that could act with a budget that could budget, and the movie looks really good. There's some very interesting stuff they do visually with the camera. The atmosphere of the movie is pretty strong, but it totally captures what it's like to be a teenager in high school. All the cringy moments in this film that are, like, this movie isn't perfect. There's a lot of cringy things and a couple of, like, comedic moments that don't really land and stuff. But, you know, high school, that's kind of par for the course. So I definitely land that this is good. It's good. Whereas, like, I can nostalgically rewatch the original Power Rangers show and find amusement there in very small doses. I made the mistake of introducing it to my daughter, and there was like a couple week period there where it was just all Power Rangers all the time, and it, like, being that it was on Netflix, it was just like one after the other, and I wanted to die. But this I can actually watch and happily enjoy it. And I'm really disappointed that we're not likely to get a second one. It sounds like Saban is going forward with making another Power Rangers movie, but they're going to do the reboot route, do all new cast, all that kind of stuff. It sounds like they're probably going to separate from the original characters and stuff like that and give a movie version of Power Rangers with a whole new backstory and identities and conflict and stuff, and I guess that's probably the right way to go, because for whatever reason this movie didn't connect, and I think a lot of that had to do with marketing and the fact that this was coming out in 2017 when there was a little bit of that superhero fatigue going on. I think superhero fatigue was kind of happening certainly at that time, and it started going away again because later in 2017 we got back to back really good comic book adaptations. When this came out, it was coming off of like your Batmans versus Supermans, your Suicide Squads, your X-Men Apocalypses and whatnot. Like, sure, Doctor Strange had come out just before this, a couple of months before this, but even that is sort of wishy-washy. I happen to love that movie, but a lot of people I know don't. And so I feel like that was where I heard a lot of conversation of superhero fatigue coming about. This came out around the same time as Logan, which was really the first one to, like, pull its foot out of that quicksand, followed soon after with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which a lot of people really liked. The ending of that resonated with a lot of people, including even Lindsay Ellis did a whole beautiful video about the beautiful ending that film has. Then shortly after that was Wonder Woman. Shortly after that was Spider-Man, reinvigorating the Spider-Man franchise, which is still strong to this day. Followed shortly after that with Thor Ragnarok. There was the hiccup that was Justice League, but I don't think anybody had any faith in that movie. Followed soon after by Black Panther. Followed soon after by Infinity War. So when it looked like superhero fatigue was going to happen, we got a string of some of the greatest superhero films ever made in a very short span of time. And so this was kind of caught in the middle of that. The transition period of I'm kind of done with this, and this is based after a dopey show to begin with, I don't want it. Because this is very much trying to show the world that this is a Marvel property kind of thing, even though it's not. But that's what it was being advertised as, is like, this is high school superheroes. And it just came in between. I think if this had come a little before or a little after, it might have done a lot better. It just came out at a wishy-washy time. But I like it. It's a very good movie that I would happily watch again. Anyway, moving on. Dragon Zord. No. What was it? Yeah, that's right. Anything else you want to add? This movie uses product placement in the most unusual way. A major plot point of this film is Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme is like the center of life, literally, according to this movie, because the Zeo crystal is held underneath the Krispy Kreme stand. So the amount of times that Krispy Kreme is said is brilliant, because after a little while you're like, I really could go for a Krispy Kreme. Unfortunately, I live in a state that doesn't have them anymore. I was originally going to do a gag where the entire time I was just going to be eating Krispy Kreme donuts, because you can still buy them by box or whatever at some grocery stores. And I was just going to be sitting here eating Krispy Kremes, but I didn't have the wherewithal to do that, so I had to find another gimmick. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. But anyway, I did find it amusing that Krispy Kreme, this goes alongside like Sonic the Hedgehog with their extreme love of Olive Garden, where the movie like stops multiple times to just remind you how amazing Olive Garden is. This movie does that for Krispy Kreme donuts, and that amused me. So anyway, I guess that's the last I'm going to say about Power Rangers. I really hope you give it a shot, and let me know if you have seen it. What did you think? I think it's a really solid movie, and I hope you do too. So next week, or later this week hopefully, week 14's challenge is a film based on a true story. I'm going to have to think on that one. But I'll come up with something. Let me know what you think of the Power Rangers movie, and if you do anything today, just stop for a second and ask yourself, could I be watching Power Rangers right now? Is this the right thing to do? And the answer is always going to be yes, because you've always wanted to watch Breakfast Club with giant dinosaurs literally hitting a woman across the globe. Is literally the only thing that is holding Breakfast Club from being the greatest movie of all time, and now we can watch that. So check out Power Rangers. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.